All right, I'm very excited to catch up with this guy because all season long I've wanted to get his opinion on what's been going on. We've got the return of the Edge of Extinction, and somebody is going to be coming back into the game. And he is a man who his name is now a verb as well, where somebody is looking to come in and Underwood this thing. Here he is, the winner of Survivor, the Edge of Extinction, the great Chris Underwood. Chris, how are you? No, he's got yes, yes, yes. A
What's
throwback,
up? What is
throwback.
up? I had to make sure this air horn was still
That you
downloaded,
still
but it
had it.
is.
You still
I
had
still
it.
got it.
Okay. Chris, how have you been?
Been good.
Yeah,
Been good. Just living the dream.
yeah.
Just, 1 year of marriage in the books.
Hmm.
Puppy dad, new got added a new family member about
What kind of
8 months
dog do you
ago.
have?
A golden doodle.
Golden Doodle. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a good one.
Pretty sweet. They're good. They don't shed.
Yes. Yeah.
They are. You can have them up in the bed. You can just snuggle with them. You don't got to
Yeah.
worry about all the hair.
That's the
They're
thing that the
nice.
Golden Retriever, great dog to have, but a lot of hair.
Exactly. If
Best of both
there's
worlds.
some if social like some communist party just takes over the United States and we only have one dog to choose from, all the people, just the common dog, I would like for it to be a golden doodle.
Yeah. Look, I think that if that was the platform that was going to take over and they, instituted the Golden Doodle rule, it could be pretty popular.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it. I mean, I just saying, I wouldn't hate it.
But you wouldn't be special then.
You know what? I'm okay to make some sacrifices.
Okay. All right. So,
Just
Chris
kidding.
Underwood loves Golden Doodles. That you just got back from a couple of months ago. You went. Did you drive across the country
We did, yeah. So we took
pre-shutdown?
a yeah pre-shutdown. It was while COVID-19 was making its way throughout the world, but hadn't hit
Hmm.
home yet. But yeah, we bought a little pop-up camper. I convinced my wife that'd be a good idea to take a cross-country road trip, and we pulled a little 13-foot pop-up camper from South Carolina to San Diego, all the way up to San Francisco,
Yeah.
and then drove it all the way back and spent a month on the road in January, and
Yeah.
that was awesome.
And I feel
That
like
was
you
awesome.
visited a lot of survivors along the way.
We did. We had a lot of fun. We were in San Diego at the same time that Michelle Fitzgerald was there,
Yes.
and we had a lot of fun. It was her, and it was Angelina and myself and Kara. We played some games. It was
Yeah.
fun. It was a good night.
Okay. Um, I have so many questions I want to ask you about this season, but I feel like you mentioned Michelle, and I feel like that's an interesting place to jump in because Michelle is somebody who has been very vocal this season about how that she feels like that in terms of the win that she had, that people consider her to be. Oh, that she had the whole thing. Aubrey should have won, and everything that went on with that, and there was controversy around her win. You coming in from the edge of extinction are probably no stranger to that. Is that something that you related to as like some of these winners talked about that over the course of this season?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just there's a lot of pressure that comes with playing Survivor. There's a lot of pressure that comes with winning Survivor. Surprisingly enough,
Hmm.
before just being a fan of the game, like I didn't even realize how much how much opinion there is, out there. Like there are some diehard some diehard Survivor fans, and so yeah, it's kind of hard. You got to battle that personal validation versus
Hmm.
the internet validation, right? And it's not something that anyone ever thinks about, when they
Yeah.
do win. But yeah, I can relate to Michelle in that regard.
Chris, can I ask a personal question about that? I'm asking for my sort of job report. Am I part of the problem or am I part of the solution too? There's so many like opinions on the internet. Are like is what I do and the people that like the podcast about are we helping this or hurting this, making it worse? And you
Good
could be
question.
honest.
Yeah, yeah. So it's tricky, right? I think that there's two things that are happening. I think the first thing is the people that are playing, those are real experiences.
Yeah.
And those are things that what you experience, I mean, and we can see it. You just like look at some of the players who've been on the edge of extinction. Like you can see it. Like what happens on Survivor is you are it take you get taken out of reality and you get thrown into this place where you're still trying to navigate it as if you were living a normal life, but your chemistry is getting all jacked up, your body's changing, you're mentally, you come back and you're in this weird state of like I mean, there's no other way to describe it but PTSD.
Hmm.
And you're trying to understand and interpret those feelings internally as a human. But then there's this other thing that's going on when in the reality is you're not really a human when you play Survivor. You're kind of like a character. You're like a character in a video game.
Hmm.
And when someone comments on your gameplay, it's them commenting on the character that of you, not you as a person. And so it gets tricky for as someone who has played the game and sees that there's a lot of personal triumphs and personal struggles that every player has to go through, and then to be put into a position where they literally have to detach the person that they are from the character that they are
Hmm.
to handle the criticism and to handle the love.
Yeah.
And the players that have a hard time dealing with it are the ones that kind of, those are blurred, right? Because they don't understand the difference.
Mhm.
And I think that there's both sides can do probably a better job at understanding those very important factors.
Yeah.
Is the from the fan side and from the public opinion side, we are real people. The
Yes.
players who play Survivor are doing the very best they can with what they have, and you know treat them as such, but don't come at them personally. And but then the players need to understand nothing that they did should be unvalidated or should be discredited because of someone's opinion about their gameplay. And the best way to do that is to remove yourself from your personal experiences and look at it more from like you're just a character in a video game, or you're
Mhm.
something that is a surface level, kind of a hologram, if you will. So you've got to detach the
Yeah.
emotions from what people are saying about you.
So let me just ask you, when you say like a character in a video game, that I feel like that almost implies like somebody else has the controller. Is that what you mean, or is it just like that you are just like a person that's like on somebody's television in that way?
Yeah, more so like someone's on the television in that way. Like there's no one that's controlling us and behind the scenes,
Yeah.
but you look at it like a movie. You see that person in a movie, you relate to the character that actor's
Hmm.
playing, and you criticize that movie, that whether that movie was awesome or that movie sucked, or the character that person is playing, the acting. But
Hmm.
the reality is, if they're taking it personally because of how the script was written, or because of how the plot twist happened at the end, or
Hmm.
like the Game of Thrones, right? Like,
Right.
the key there is to understand that, don't like, you can't take that stuff personally.
Right.
There, this season especially, I've heard and felt it in the Survivor community that the players out there, they're really it's just tough. Survivor's a tough game, and when everyone's a critic and you've gone through this traumatic experience,
Hmm.
it's tough to deal with if you can't kind of come to grips with who you are outside of the game. So that's been I think something I've really focused on this year, is taking my entire experience very lightly and
Hmm.
just looking at it from a bird's eye view, and not harboring or internalizing any of those things. Like I know my value, I know my worth outside of Survivor. Those two things are different. I was so blessed and fortunate to play the game, but I really it doesn't affect me in the same way because the tweets or the whatever the opinions or the comments, it's just like
Mhm.
whatever, like those are two
Yeah.
separate things for me personally. So I think that both parties can probably you know uh, do a better job at defining those roles and not getting it muddled up.
Okay. So your experience, Chris, I think is really baked into the experience that these players are going through because that your season ended. I think that that Wednesday night that we were all together, one hell of a night. This week a year ago, and then I think these players watched that episode, and then they headed off to Fiji. I think the next morning, so they got to see you win, and then I think they were still like trying to process this. And I think that's really interesting in terms of how this is going to play out for them. And so they got to see the episode, but they didn't really get to see like the weeks and weeks that were spent like still like trying to unpack what went on at the end of Edge of Extinction. But they did get to see you play, and I think that has to be really top of mind for the players that are now expecting somebody to come back in from the Edge of Extinction on this season. How much is what you did in the Edge of Extinction, do you think, on the mind of the 5 players that are still in the main game right now?
I think that my experience and kind of what I did in the last few days is going to play a big role in the vote out order, I think,
Yeah.
of this season. And
The
I don't
ghost of Chris is going to be
yes,
haunting season 40.
yes, the same way that the ghost of Dom was haunting us,
Yeah,
it's
from
the
Ghost
cycle
Island.
that from Ghost Island, it's the cycle of when you're seeing and you're breaking down and analyzing gameplay. It's whatever's the most recent thing in your mind that
Hmm.
you remember is kind of, what experience you have. So the fact that Tyson got voted out twice, pretty I think it was the situation obviously was unique
Yeah.
because Jeremy left tribal and then they switched the votes on Tyson, but him getting voted out twice, we didn't have anyone from the edge. Rick and I both stayed to the very end,
Hmm.
and to the last day pretty much. And I don't know what's going to happen. I think that the fire tokens are going to play an interesting role, and I have not been spoiled. I have intentionally closed my ears, shut my ears off to anything in the background, and so I do not know who's getting back in. I do not know what's going to happen. I think that fire tokens are going to play a part in the success of whoever gets back in,
As in the
whether that
advantages
be,
that were bought.
yes, as in
Yeah.
the advantages that were bought. I can't see that how that would not play a factor.
Hmm.
But I don't know if the person who gets back from the edge is going to make it all the way this time. We'll
Yeah.
we'll see.
So, do you feel like there's any chance that the players that are in the game would vote with the Edge of Extinction person in the way that people voted with you, not for you on that first vote when you came back?
Depends on the relationships that were built ahead of
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
Like I was in a position to, against all of the what made sense to the players in the game at the time. I had built a relationship with Rick from the Edge of Extinction, but also from getting back in the game and saying, "Hey, you're my only ally in this game at this point. Let's
Yeah.
work together to get to Final Four.
Hmm.
Let's play this thing out." And so they would have it would have made no sense in their mind for someone like me to come and team up with the number one threat, but that's what I needed for my strategy to work. I think that someone who comes back in may fall into that same category.
Hmm.
The interesting thing about this year, what we've seen, is that they really do want everyone who is at the end to be, sitting there and have merit and have things in the resume where
Yeah.
some of these players that may have slid under the radar in my season or previous seasons, they're making intentional strides to get those players out to
Mhm.
have a stacked final five, and which is really interesting. I think Tony and Sarah are doing a lot of that. Talking behind the scenes, like we want people here that any one person could beat any other person. There's no one at the end that's like, yeah, that's a write off. We have votes over that individual. So it's going to be really interesting. I'm really excited for this finale. I've really enjoyed this season. I've gotten to know a lot of the players at a more personal level, so I'm more invested in how they're doing and how
In
they're
real life or on the
in real
show?
life. In
Yes.
real life, yeah. So I'm more invested in them and kind of how they're dealing with all of the opinions about what's going on. But I can't wait to watch the finale next Wednesday. It's going to be a treat.
Are you rooting for the person to come back in from the edge and win? Or do you feel like that you want to be the only person who comes back in from the edge and wins?
I don't care either way. I just want there to be someone who is the best representation of the season. And if that's someone who comes back from the edge and just kicks ass next week, let game on. Like, I'm totally fine with that.
Mhm.
Will I be butthurt if there's two winners that have come back from the edge of extinction? Not at all. I don't
Well,
I don't care.
it could
But
be butthurt, or it could be that, hey, that now, I don't have to be the only person that, bears this responsibility of that there's precedent now. It's not just that people say, oh, well, it's going to be like when Chris came back. It's like when Chris and when Natalie came back and won the game. It's like
yeah,
that if it's something that people point to that they don't like, that's less on you.
yeah, yeah. You're who knows. I don't think, for me personally, either way, whatever happens. I'm good with it.
Hmm.
If someone else comes back from the edge and wins, hey, more power to you. That's a tough place to live, tough
Yeah.
place to be.
All right.
But yeah, we'll see.
How weird has it been for you to see the Edge of Extinction back, and not just this twist back, but the actual same island that you lived on, the Edge of Extinction?
It's been strange. It's definitely been surreal. The experiences that I had out there, and kind of hearing even Amber's confessional this past episode,
Yeah.
a lot of those common threads there about what it teaches you, how it's just a really hard place to exist, but it's also something that when you have nothing at all, and even the game is not yours, you can't even claim that as your own. You really start reevaluating and reprioritizing some of those things you had in your mind about where you should focus and where you should put your energy and attention. And
Hmm.
the edge of extinction it's psychological warfare, but it also, if you can get through that, you do come out a stronger person for it. And a lot of people, I think, on this season have experienced that, and it's
Yeah.
been really cool to see their personal journeys, their growths in that way. But I mean, I know how it feels to go up that mountain. I know how it feels. It looks smaller on TV.
Hmm.
I'm telling everyone out
Yeah.
there, the edge of extinction looks smaller on television, but climbing up to the top of that hill, like, I was in shock whenever they had that challenge where they had to carry the 30 logs. Like, oh
Hmm.
my
Yeah.
gosh, so much respect for Danny and Ethan and Amber and Natalie. It
Yeah.
just kudos to them.
So, Chris, you mentioned psychological warfare, which I think was definitely taking place, at least in the early part of the Edge of Extinction in your season. It doesn't seem like there has been much conflict on the Edge of Extinction. In fact, I can't even recall one time when there was any conflict on the Edge of Extinction on this season. Why do you think that is?
Well, previous relationships and basically all of the players on the edge of extinction are old school players. They've
Hmm.
known each other for a decade.
Hmm.
It's Parvati and Amber, or Parvati and Rob, or all these just, social connections. They've all known each other for years.
Mhm.
So I don't think there's any reason to have the the
Animosity.
battles that we had. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so earlier this season, I talked with Reem, and she was very upset about something on this season. Do you know what it is?
I believe was it the blanket?
Yes, yes. She was
The
she was
blanket.
like, dude, do you can believe that these guys they've got a bed and they've got blankets and sheets and we had to sleep on bamboo and it was hard and these winters they're really making it easy for them. Reem was not happy that they added this canopy bed to
Reem was
the Edge of
reaming them.
Extinction.
She
Yeah,
was she was reaming the productions. We had a tarp, dude. That's all
yeah,
that we had. There
yeah,
were holes. It was cold, dude. That sucked.
yeah, yeah. And so she was upset about it. Does this bother you that they gave a bed to the winners?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah,
A little bit.
yeah.
It was way more cush. It was like Edge of Extinction,
They
glamping version.
glamping. Yeah, they
Yeah,
upgraded it.
so they upgraded for sure.
Yeah.
It was a lot more bare whenever we were
Mhm.
there. Now, granted, we didn't have any challenges where we had to climb the we had to go up
Yeah.
and down the mountain 30 times,
Right.
and that's its own battle, but it was very cold and very difficult. And I don't know, whenever we had our season, when Keith and Reem finally got their fire started the day before I got there, we never let that fire go out once.
Mhm.
The entire time, the fire was our lifeline. And so for 33 days, that fire stayed smoldering or was lit. And I haven't seen. I don't know if they've had to keep their fire going to stay warm the whole time. Because
Mhm.
they've had some of these other, maybe some more jackets or the blankets or just a better, more comfortable thing. But we had to sleep next to that fire every single night to stay
Mhm.
warm because
Yeah.
that sail, that plastic piece of crap thing that I have
Yeah.
rags of in my closet,
Now,
it was not cutting it for a
Chris,
blanket.
is it true that there was like some hazing that would go on the Edge of Extinction where that there was like a circle around the fire and then the person who just got voted off, they didn't have a spot around the fire. They had to go figure it out. And only after a little while you guys would make room for somebody else around the fire.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say it was hazing. I think that people that have been there a while, had their spot cut out for them, but everywhere it kind of went into, the first few nights that
Mhm.
everyone made a square around the fire, and then
Yeah.
it kind of turned into a pentagon, and then kind of a hexagon, and then it
So
ended
it took
up
a
there.
while to
That
figure out the diagram for the new shape, is what you're
Yeah, I
saying.
think by the end of it, it kind of turned into like a half, you know, type geometric shape, and then the other half kind of looked like, you know, a star or something. People started going vertical, and like only they could only fit their head by the fire,
Hmm.
their feet by the fire. So,
Yeah.
yeah, if you got there. Like Aurora, she was there one night. Yeah,
Hmm.
she was like, in the morning I'll be fine. She didn't have to claim her spot closest to the fire.
Okay. And they have more people there. I think that they're up to now. Is it how many? What was the max people that you guys had at the
Well, we
Edge of
had
Extinction?
18. Yeah, there was 18 players in my season. There's 20 players in this season.
Yeah. And so
And so two, you got
Keith
to do
and
two more, or
Wendy
one more.
left. And then people like Lauren ended up going right to the jury. And did a and Victoria and Lauren and Rick, they went right to the jury.
Yep.
So
There would have been 10. There would have been
12,
11.
something like that. But there's a I
11
mean I
people
think
around the fire, and then now there's 20 players, one's left.
mhm,
12, 13. I
yeah.
think there's 13 people out there now.
Yeah.
There was 11 when we were out, I think.
It's a lot. It's a lot of people.
I'm not good
It's a
at
lot of
math.
people. Chris, we mentioned the fire tokens briefly. You like the fire tokens? You feel like the fire tokens add something, or you feel like that the fire tokens ruins the point of the Edge of Extinction?
Um, I personally I've enjoyed how the fire tokens play out. I'm not someone who's so stuck in the past that I can't see an avenue to like
Hmm.
the future or evolving. I I
You're
like the
no
fact that the
purist.
I'm no purist. Yeah, like
Yes.
I go with the flow, like change it up,
Yeah.
see if something works, see a new style.
That would be
Eh,
ironic if you were like really gonna plant your flag and say like, "Hey, this game is 39 days, 16
no,
people,
no idols, no advantages, and
nothing
definitely no
fancy." Yeah.
edge of freaking extinction. Yeah,
um.
no, I think I'm kind of pigeonholed there. I'd be
Yeah.
shooting myself
You
in the
got to
foot
embrace it.
if I suddenly embrace the traditional Survivor
Right.
platform. So I like that being said, I like the fire tokens. I think
Hmm.
they add another level of complexity. I think that it these fire tokens make it harder to win.
Hmm.
Bottom line, it is more difficult to win now with the fire tokens than it was to win without the fire tokens because there's another uncontrolled variable and you're striving so hard to have control in survivor. That's all it's about.
Yeah.
It's what it's about is you maybe should be a little more subtle than Rob when it
Hmm.
comes to having control, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you still got to have some sort of control, and fire tokens make it very difficult because you don't know how they're being used and who has what and what's going on in the background, and the fact that you can now negotiate and barter around players you want to see voted out or with players that you want to go to the end with is plays a very important role in the overall strategy and gameplay, and it's going to affect it'll affect certain players based on how they went home, and
What
we've
would
seen that.
your strategy be with the fire tokens? Would you be hoarding them to get the advantages back in the challenge, or do you think that you would have bought peanut butter like we've seen a couple of people do?
Depends on the number of tokens I had. I think an advantage in getting back into the game is a must. If anyone on the edge of extinction has a token, they've got to
Hmm.
get
Advantage.
they've got to get the advantage. They have to. It's
Yeah.
just if everyone had to, like in my first extinction challenge that Rick won, if everyone had to untie those knots, I mean, I most likely would have won. Like
You got well that you had a disadvantage played against you in the
right,
in the first challenge, even though you
right,
also had an advantage of you got to practice, and then you had basically it was even Steven for that second one. Aubrey had practice, but there were no other advantages, right?
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So like it's the if everyone had an advantage or the equivalent, just kind of swapping the roles
yeah.
there. If everyone had if there was five people that had a disadvantage and the other five had a fit clean slate, those people are positioned to do much better.
Hmm.
They are, and so I think that depending on the advantage is going to play an important role because we've seen some advantages where like, eh,
Not that big
wasn't
a
a very
deal.
good
Yeah.
advantage, or
Um.
like mine is like I could practice tying string together. It was my advantage. And it's like, yeah, not
Yeah.
not very not very effective.
Did it help that you had already done the Edge of Extinction challenge? And I know the two challenges were different, but did it help that you had basically had a sense of what it was the second time after you'd already competed in it the first time?
Um, I don't think that the first challenge. Well, I take that back. It did, but in the same way that any challenge that you play on Survivor,
Hmm.
retrospectively, like you get a little bit better the more that you do.
Yeah.
For me, I remember that the first ball, because we had two balls to end the same way that they probably did. I mean, I'm sure they did in the first challenge of this season, but they only showed one going into the
So
hole. We had to get
it was
2 balls into
the
the
snake
Yeah.
puzzle with
Yeah.
the snake maze with the marble, and then so you had to land 2 balls. They only showed 1 on the show in
Yeah,
this
yeah. So
season.
the first in my season, I'm sure in this season as well they had 2, but I just remember that I held on to the handles, and I got really close to the top, and I had put so much pressure on myself to win that the nerves got me, and you start shaking a little bit and your ball falls. So kind of like coming to that in the second challenge, when I say that I was content and kind of had let go in more of like an existential sense of the word, like the saying, like let go of control,
Mhm.
I was I had no pressure. And so there was no like anxiety, there was no elevated heart rate, there was no stress. Like I was genuinely enjoying the process of getting through that challenge and playing it. And by the time I got to the very end, I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna smile through this. And if the ball drops, I'm back in the game. And if the ball doesn't drop, I'm gonna have a hamburger and a beer.
Yeah.
And like, there was just no personal internal stress, right? Kind of like that. Calm down, slow your heart rate, slow your mind. And I don't think I would have been at that point, had I not come so close to winning the first time, and then the nerves got to me, and I had so much internal pressure that I put on myself that it didn't work out. So
Mhm.
it's definitely, there's something about staying controlled under extreme pressure that
Yeah.
a lot of like you see that. I mean, that's what makes professional athletes clutch, and that's what makes people so good whenever they focus on staying under control, slowing down their heart rate, being content with the outcome, and typically finding success through doing that. So yeah, it was weird. It was weird for me going through that final challenge, but I wouldn't have been at that place had I not had the edge of extinction and had I not come so close the first time.
Chris, did it speak to you a little bit when Denise opened up the episode talking about the 2 things that she discovered during her time on Survivor this season was to endure and let go, which to me sounds very similar to what you're talking about in terms of your edge of extinction experience and what freed you up to win that second challenge when you came back.
Yeah, it was really neat to hear her say that. I the last day whenever we were making fire and we were practicing fire, I just remember like Rick and we were having like a heart to heart, and he kind of knew what was coming, and I just told him, I gave him some, we talked, and I gave him some personal, story of just some things that had happened in my life. And one thing that I just felt really was resonating with me is kind of this like concept of, for any recovering person, it's the Serenity's prayer, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
God, higher power, whoever, like, grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change, the courage to change the things I can, and the willingness or the wisdom to take action, right? Willingness to take action. So for me, it was like, there's going to be things I can control. There's going to be things I can't control. Give me courage to control the things that I can. Give me serenity to accept the things that I can't.
yeah.
And the chips are going to fall where they fall, and I'm going to be better for it. So it was cool to have Denise, reveal the same insight that got me through in the very end.
Yeah. And I think that's probably also like very true of like the entire experience where, there's so many things that are luck based. You can only control what you can control both in the game and even out of the game. You can go out there and do, XYZ and it could be, something that's really amazing, but if they don't show it or they show something that doesn't show you or paint you in the best light, you can't control that either. So you can't control that part of the experience either. So you really just have like a limited amount of control of this entire experience. So you got to be able to take away what you can from it.
Exactly. Yeah. Set your expectations right. Set your intentions right from the get go.
Hmm.
Any future Survivor players out there, whatever happens, in the future, like if you're out there, word of advice from a person who's come full circle on it, just set your
Mhm.
intentions right from the get-go and know that the game, there's only going to be one person that's going to win, and you being out there is a very, very special gift and a special opportunity.
Mhm.
And don't, yeah, don't live with any regrets. Don't live with regrets, and set your expectation and your intentions right the first time around, and you'll have a lot more fun and you'll enjoy the process a lot more. It's hard, it sucks, and it's hard being duplicitous, and it's hard lying to people you care about and you would be friends with in the real world, but those are all part of the game. You're signing up for it, but just don't let yourself come back and just live in turmoil or regret or
Mhm.
anxiety because of X, Y, and Z that you couldn't control anyway. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Cut yourself some slack.
Chris, I want to bring in questions from the listeners also that people are very excited to hear what you have to say about all of this. Mike Edwards wants to know, how does Chris feel like that he would have fared with this crowd? I think that you would have been such an interesting wild card to have out there in terms of being the person who, I think that there's so many questions that we're like, well, what is Chris's game? Like, I think that you would have been, and we didn't really have that person where the person who's like the true X factor wild card, where in past seasons where it's like, oh, who's this Russell guy? I don't know who he is, or who's this Malcolm guy who's out here in fans versus favorites. That I think it would have been fun to have like sort of like that mystery player. And while they saw your season, I think that you certainly would have fit the bill as somebody who. Well, what do we expect from having Chris out here?
Yeah, I've thought about it. I've thought about it a lot, and kind of, at the time of airing, you laid it out pretty well. Like we were there partying, having a good time.
Yeah,
The next morning, everyone's flying out to Survivor, and that's a hard, like, yeah. I mean, that's just a tough thing to kind of come to terms with, and when you're married and you want to have a good marriage for the next 50 years, you
sure.
kind of want to cherish your words of wisdom from family and from your wife and everyone else. And it wasn't the right season, and I wasn't mentally ready to make that jump.
Yeah,
But the I think one of the things that has kind of come out into light is just knowing that there, even as we've seen it, there's definitely been this old school, new school type division. And I know that if I were to have gone out there, I would have probably fallen in lockstep with Michelle and with Nick and with Adam and some of those new school
yeah.
players, and that would have been a lot of fun to kind of see pan out. But I don't know. I think that every day changes. I mean, the strategy I would have played is to try to take a step back and really just be involved in as many conversations as I can, but not get caught playing both sides. And whether that looks like using some of those sales strategies, or whether that was letting someone take the horn, or
Mhm.
putting myself in a position with better spidey senses to not spill the candy or try to influence or sway someone. Like I realized in my relationship with War Dog out there, if you're trying to align with someone who considers themselves to be an alpha, don't even think about giving it your own opinion, even if you're doing it the textbook way. What do you think about this option? Or that this could be good for our game if we did this. If you're with someone who wants to control the game, it's probably not in your best interest to try to make influence their decision making
Yeah.
process. So yeah, I
So
probably would have played somewhere on the a little bit more of the back burner game
that's
until there
interesting.
was.
So could you talk about that a little bit more? Because that I haven't heard that explained that way before in terms of dealing with. So you like let's say you're out there in the game with somebody who's like let's use Tony for instance in this season. So if you're playing with a Tony or a Boston Rob, and so if you that do you just never pitch anything that's going to be your idea? And if so, how do you try to get your idea out there?
The interesting thing about, I mean, especially with this season, is there are the full spectrums of ego
Yeah.
out there, if you
Yeah.
know what I'm talking about, right? Like there's people that see themselves in a certain light, and there's other people that uh see themselves in a different light and have a lot to prove and want to prove and are so eager for that acceptance. And there's other people's that know they're hot shit, and they want to be at the top all the time and make all the decisions. And this game is a social game, and you have to understand those types of personalities. And so for someone that is a dominant character type, it is going to require a lot of ego stroking, and is going to require a lot of like, what do you want to do? I don't know what I want to do. Like, what plan should we go? Oh, that's a good plan. And not, and even if it's your idea, you've got to plant that in their mind that it's their idea. And then if that's something that's happening, you can kind of go to someone who is more on the same level, where you see mutual respect there, right? When you both see each other in the same light, it's easier to have more logical conversations. And
Yeah.
so then you can say, hey, this guy thinks he's full, he wants to do this or that, and I'm just telling him everything he wants to hear, but here's what we're gonna do, right? So
Mhm.
that was a case with like Rob, and when Rob and Adam and them, they blindsided him. But it's very
So what
interesting to
you're
see all
saying
the
is that,
dynamics
so
here.
in that situation, Adam had the wrong approach with Boston Rob. He came to Boston Rob and gave and told Boston Rob what was going to happen, and that was never going to work with Boston Rob.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And as soon as you get caught playing both sides, like I mean, you're in for trouble. But yeah, there's other players that have done a really good job just playing the middle. I mean, the Denise has done pretty dang good.
Mhm. Yeah.
Michelle's done well. Nick's done well, and he's gonna have to. He was, if he gets back in or whatever. If he continued that, he would have had to explain some of those behind the scenes moves that he made. But it strategically, it's, you want to find the middle ground of it's, and it's such a fine line. It's so
Yeah.
so hard to do, but you've got to find that middle ground between deferring your plan and your decision making to someone else, while also making sure that you're in the running for having moves and having a certain style of play that is a little flashy that
Yeah.
people do know. But then you've got to, if you do something, you've got to like retreat. You can't stay on the forefront. And I mean, Tony's done it, and kudos to him. He's the fan
Mhm.
favorite right now, and him and Sarah, because they're out there, they're leading the front, they're staying loyal to each other, which, holy cow, I mean, just the fact that if you can continue a trusting, equal, type relationship or alliance, it is going to get you so far. Because when you're in lockstep with someone, they can do something crazy, they can make a mistake, or you can make a mistake. But if you know that you're not going to vote for that other person, and everyone else is like, can you see what they just did? Can you see what that person just did? It's like, no, you're agreeing with that group of thinkers, that thought process, but your true alliance member is someone that you're so tight with. It's cool to see that strategy play out so well in Cops R Us.
Mhm. Chris, I want to go back to a little bit earlier. You were talking about how you felt like that you would fit in really well with the new school players, Michelle, Adam, Nick, Wendell, people that played and won in the more recent seasons. And you were talking about the idea of, the egos and survivor players' perceptions of themselves. And so I deal with this a lot in terms of, doing the podcast and talking to everybody and how to approach different players. Do the old school players make it easy for the new school players? Because I have to think it's a little bit sort of like, a sports league where, there's people who, played and won championships, 15 years, 10 years ago. They think the sport was better when they were sort of like the dominant players in the sport, and maybe they give the newer players a hard time, or kind of like diminish their accomplishments. Like, have you found that to be the case in any way with Survivor? And maybe that's why some of these new school players have this bond about that they can share over the way that they were maybe accepted into the Survivor world.
I just think it was a different era, and the reality is I was so fortunate to win Survivor. I'm one of 38 people, right? Or
Hmm.
40 people now, or
Hmm.
39. Okay,
No, it'll
well,
still be
38.
38.
Technically
Yeah,
38
yeah,
because Sandra won twice, and
yeah. Not
then
even
there's
technically. Yeah,
not even
yeah,
technically. So I'm one
yeah.
of 38 people that have won Survivor, but I'm not going on Good Morning America.
Right.
Like I'm not going on Jimmy Kimmel Live. I'm the generation, the three generations before us. I mean, that primetime television was all that there was.
Yeah.
And so there's a different self perception where now I don't have as much of that, those things going for me where I have so much identity or value in what I accomplished, as much as maybe someone who legitimately got on like national television live to talk about their win, right?
Hmm.
So having said that, when you're having those dialogues or you're looking at how different people play, it can be kind of, who does he think that he is, or what I you're not old, like you don't know how hard it was back whenever I played, or like whatever else, whatever excuses, whatever your ego tells yourself. Like, I just think there has been a disconnect or a shift, just in because of the popularity of the show. We're at this point where it has a cult following and still millions of people watch it, but it's
Right.
not 50 million people. And so it's a different, as long as you have like a realistic expectation of who you are. I'm not going to ever be, a social media influencer. Yeah, I got, there's over 20,000 people that look at my stuff, but I'm not ever going to be someone that's like
Hmm.
going to land a deal with some thing. And so just, I think,
Hey,
like
you're in the
reality
Zaddy
checks.
calendar.
I am in the Zaddy calendar. All
Yeah.
right.
Not everybody can say that.
Yep, I've got Bryce. Him and Kate are they're sister wives, self-proclaimed
Hmm.
sister wives. Sister wives. So, like it's all good, but like that's the extent for me. It's not going to go
Yeah.
beyond that. I'm not going to be able to get a book deal like Rob did, but
Hmm.
that's going to play important role, just the generational shift in how the new school players are treated and how they bond compared to how some of the old school treaters see themselves, or how they still look at the whole thing that gave them such a big boost, or really create made a career for them, right? So there's just
Hmm.
a difference there that I don't think is you've got to have a little bit of a reality check from both sides to have a real cohesion there.
Okay. All right. I think that there's a lot of interesting stuff in what you're talking about, but that might be a whole different podcast.
Yeah, that's a different podcast, Rob.
Explore all that. I'm interested. That's a very interesting subject to me. Okay. Um, Chris. So let's see. Joy Davis was. Who's Chris rooting for to return from the edge of extinction?
Ooh, I would love. I mean, just based on the grit that I've seen Natalie portray,
Hmm.
she deserves it. Even if she
Yeah.
doesn't get it, she deserves to be back in. She deserves that shot. I would love for that to happen. That'd be really cool.
Can I ask you about
I'm
Natalie
really, yeah,
while we're on Natalie? That I thought that was very interesting that she said in the episode the other day, where this wasn't for me, this was, that I am again, I'm trying to remember the exact way that she said it, but she said basically this was 36 days of work,
yeah,
what I've done here, or whatever day it
right.
is in the game. This wasn't
Yeah, she
just
never
like,
took a day off. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, that all of these things that I have here, this is the result of me, working for 35 days. I didn't like sit on my butt here on the edge of extinction, just waiting for time to get back in.
right. Yeah, it was cool for her to say that, and for us to see it. I mean, dude, she had 14 fire tokens. Like, you're you're doing something right for that time frame. If you've got, you've got 13 fire tokens to show for. So she really has been, she's been grinding, she's been working, and it's different. It doesn't look like the traditional game, but it's more than a lot of people did in the game, because you can sit back. If you're sitting cushion in an alliance, you say, hey, who are we voting for? And they say, we're voting for this person. You say, okay, good. Because you're a number,
Hmm.
right? But when you're out there on the edge, you're your own number. You're your own team, and you've got to work harder to stay sharp and be ready if your time comes. It's like, there's a whole roster, and the thing is, only one person's getting back in. So that's 13 different stories that we've been following and we've been investing in. But I want Wendell and Natalie, to get in, and you know, who knows, to get Tyson come in a third time. How about that for a
Hmm.
story? But
Yeah.
only one person's going to get in. So, it's whoever is best prepared and has put in the mental fortitude and kind of strategically thought through to the end, who's gonna see success if they do make it back.
Okay. Will wants to know if you were on this season, would you go to the edge on purpose early since it worked out so well last time? So I suspect you would not go to the edge on purpose, but would it free you up at all in terms of like how you would play if you were on a season with the edge, being like, hey, I'm going to play loosey goosey. Worst case scenario is I go to the edge and I know I can come back from the edge. That's basically maybe I have another life.
I could. It's a high risk, low reward at that point, because why would you put yourself on the edge to then be the target, that you're the only person coming back from the edge?
Yeah.
Doesn't make much sense. Like, if you're thinking probability,
Yeah.
you're not putting yourself out there to then try to compete with for a 1 in 13
Yeah,
spot to then
nobody
have a
should
huge
try to go
target.
to the edge, but
No one should ever try to
would
go to
it
the edge.
change the way you played knowing that there was an edge versus if you were on a season that didn't have the edge?
I don't know. I don't know if anyone would play harder earlier because or be more duplicitous earlier because they
Mhm.
would have a second chance.
Yeah.
I don't see that. I don't see that happening. I think there's a cushion, right? There's a backdrop. You're not so devastated if you do lose, but you still need to be in the game as long as possible
Mhm.
to see the full picture and create a more accurate kind of path to the end. Like, I would not have won my season had I not done had certain things not played out perfectly. Like, when I say that there was nothing more I could have done to win, and there was nothing less I could have done to win, uh, I like it. It's very hard. It's very hard to to play a perfect stretch in the ways that it happens, because there's so many variables. So you want to be able, again, to have as much control as you can, and so you want to be in the game as long as possible for options to exist.
Mhm. Chris, the other day when you heard about, oh, go to the throne of stone, did you immediately know where the advantage was?
No, I did. I thought that the it would have been at the top of the mountain, maybe where we had would always look over the sunset. But I never ventured back that far past the other side of that island. So
Oh,
that where
you
she,
didn't
yeah,
even know where the throne of stone is.
it was where I know where it was. It was where the practice challenge was for Aubrey when they had
Oh, and was that area roped off?
it wasn't roped. It wasn't roped off. There we had full kind of like discretion to go wherever we wanted to, but we knew that area. I knew where it was, but my first instinct would have been to go up to the top, because I only had been back there once or twice.
Hmm. Okay, so Natalie Anderson knows the edge of extinction better than you do.
Natalie does.
Okay.
Natalie
All
knows
right.
it.
All right.
She's a beast.
She's the new queen of extinction. No.
Yeah,
Uh,
sorry, Reem. Sorry,
dude, you're
Reem.
wrong. You're wrong. Um,
I think Reem would be cool with sharing that spot as co-queen with Natalie Anderson.
uh,
Natalie's a badass.
I think that they have a lot in common. I think they're both people that speak their mind and don't suffer fools. And yeah, and Natalie calls people fools all the time. So I think that they
Yep.
would get along very well. Okay. Nicole Archer says, I feel like that Gavin's mistake in the final tribal was undermining the experience of those who spent time on the edge of extinction. Do you think that there's a way for a player who has never been to the edge to make the jury members feel like that they had a valid, worthy experience enough to get votes sitting next to someone who returned from the edge of extinction? All right. So, Chris, if you were somebody who hypothetically was sitting on the jury after being on the edge of extinction, what would you want to hear from a person who had never been to the edge of extinction?
I think that no, I don't know how many times I've had to say this, but like I literally was not getting votes. Like there was so many people who were like, you were not going to get my vote if you go back in. You will have to play so perfect to
Yeah.
to get my vote. So it's really not like it's just an automatic vote because you are on the edge of extinction.
Yeah. No,
Like it's
I get
really
that.
not. So I don't know if someone were to make it to the end and be sitting next to someone who was on the edge of extinction. You just got to articulate yourself in a way that is valid and worthy of votes at the end of the game. Like it's
Mhm.
not difficult. Like that's the whole point of the final tribal council
Yeah.
is to create a framework that the jury respects and understands. Oh my gosh, they did that. Like they influenced
Mhm.
that decision and they influenced that vote out. And just the differences with what I had and the moves that I had, it was positioned for better delivery at final tribal than Gavin had. And I who knows, like if Gavin had even articulated certain parts and elements of his game in a way that created him to be a more dominant player on the social side and a force that was influencing creating, then who knows, like it would have been very close. But it's I don't think, like if you to answer your question, if someone was sitting next to someone on the from the edge of extinction in the final three and they had to describe what they did, they would just have to describe what they did
Yeah.
in a way that doesn't discredit the people on the edge of extinction's
Right.
experience,
So
but gives them a
is
way
that the
through.
important part where does Tony need to, hypothetically, if he gets to the end, does he need to be very careful to not say, I was out here for 39 days, I never got voted out? Like, is that something where in a normal final tribal council, you would sort of like pound your chest, like, yeah, I'm sitting here, I played this game, but then to the people that are sitting there on the jury, who were part of this, whereas well, what's wrong if I got voted out? Why is that? Why is that so bad?
A, a key, again, advice for someone who's going to go on to Survivor: if you make it to the end, you can't discredit someone else's experience.
Hmm.
You can't. So the important thing to remember is, if like someone's on the edge of extinction, you say, you give them strokes, right? You give them uh uh you make sure that they are aware that you have a personal care and a deep respect for the experience that they all went through.
Hmm.
And then you can lay out your framework of why you believe that the experiences that you went through are better or more worthy of winning and
Hmm.
being a representative of their season. But a lot of what my pitch was to said, I've done everything that I can, and my only hope is that you see that the person that you deem worthy of winning this season is a representation of everybody.
Hmm.
And if that representation is Gavin and how Gavin played, then you should vote for him. But if you see that representation as of me as the spirit of this season, and someone who did everything and is worthy of respect on the gameplay side, but also went through a lot of the experiences you guys went through, then then absolutely, I want you to vote for me. And if Tony gets to the end and says, all of you guys, that we're on the edge of extinction, from everything that I've heard and people have told me, I'm fortunate I didn't have to go through that, because that is something that is so difficult. And hats off to each one of you for being out there.
Yeah.
What I did while I was in the game was X, Y, and Z, and that's why I deserve to win your vote and be a representative of this season.
Hmm.
Right? So you have to validate their experiences. If you're not validating someone else's experience, they're most likely not going to vote to give you $1 million.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, just advice for jury management there.
Yeah. That's a really good point. It came up at your final tribal council of like where Gavin was talking about how like, hey, like I did what I was supposed to do. I stayed in the game for 39 days, and I forget if it was Julia or War Dog who said like, hey, this theme of the season isn't on trial. You're on trial. Um,
Yep.
and I do think that that you guys played on the season, the Edge of Extinction. Like that's the name of the season. It says it on the buff. I wonder also if that is sort of like helps to really legitimize the Edge of Extinction person and for the theme of that particular season, maybe in a way that it's not going to here, where the theme is winners at war.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've kind of made it clear, like they want to have people at the end who all have played a certain element of, of gameplay, that you don't have to get to the end, and you don't have to think, what did I do? Like, I really want to got to think hard about what I did to get here. Like, they're kind of already positioning themselves like, we this season is winners at war. I mean, Tony said it.
Hmm.
This season is winners at war. I wanted someone at the end, people at the end who are the best of the best. We
This
want
is the
to
Super
reward the
Bowl.
best of the best. This is the Super Bowl, and there's a certain level of competition, and a certain level of, mutual respect of all those people out there. But yeah, it's going to be different, because they legitimately just want to crown the person who say, hey, I was a winner, you was a winner, you played a better game than me, you deserve it, go get it.
Okay.
It's not going to be um, well, I'm not sure. Let's pick the lesser of three evils here.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm super excited, but I know that whoever is at the end, it's not going to be a scenario where one, two, or three are going to be any more or less capable or qualified of winning. I think Final Tribal is going to be super critical this season.
Chris, can I pitch you on my idea for the Edge of Extinction being a permanent addition to Survivor?
Go for it.
Okay, here's Edge of Extinction. It's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same. It lives on CBS All Access, and the person at the end of the Edge of Extinction doesn't get back into this season. They win a shot to be automatically on the next season of Survivor. What do you think?
They have to stay on the edge of
They
extinction
No,
until the
they get to
next
leave.
season.
They get to go home. They get to go home. But basically, it would be that okay, you won the Edge of Extinction. It's a different. You're not voting people out. You're earning advantages. There's a big challenge at the end, and then the winner of that challenge, the audience falls in love with them on CBS All Access, and then they're automatically part of the next cast.
Uh,
You don't like it,
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I don't watch CBS All Access enough to
okay?
to, to
That's the deal
care.
breaker. Okay. Haley wants to say, not a question, just a comment. I love that he came back from the edge to win. I think he played a masterful game, and I hope he doesn't hear the haters. And then there was heart emojis also.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Do you, I mean,
Yeah,
good.
there's some really cool, things that people say every now and then, like that I'll scroll through Twitter, and it's like, I just rewatched it again, and man, it's cooler the second time around, knowing what happened in the first time around. So, like, yeah, I guess I'll take that,
Yeah. Do you
the
think
win.
that we will see the winner of the Final Four immunity challenge throw themselves into the fire making? Did you break the fire making?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it just I don't know. It just depends. Like I don't want Tony to be sitting at the end. If Tony gets to the final four, I don't want Tony taking off an immunity necklace. Yeah, that
Mhm.
makes no sense. But
It's interesting because that the original, when Dominic Abate, or that I shouldn't say the original, but I guess the original person that thought about doing this, that he had to choose which urn he was going to bring to the end. I think he chose the Tony Kagian urn. So
yeah,
there's some Tony
yeah,
DNA already here on with this Final Four fire making that
yep.
could Tony put himself into the final four fire making? Could he knock out Sarah?
I would much rather see Sarah and Tony sitting next to each other at the end. And I
Mhm.
also want, I really would like Sarah. I mean, I would totally vote for Sarah or Denise or Michelle. I think Michelle's got a work cut out for her here at the end.
Yeah,
It's you kind of have to set down your foundation early, and so who knows? We'll see if
yeah.
she gets to the end and gets
How about
votes. But
this, Chris? What about like sort of like the okay, the hey, oh, everybody loved it when Chris made the fire, so I got to do that. But Tony gets up there, he wins Final Four immunity. He's like, okay, I'm gonna put myself into the Final Four fire making. I'm bringing Denise. I'm gonna make fire against Denise. It's like
like the worst
okay.
person.
Yeah, and I
like
have no idea. Maybe Denise is great at making the fire. I have no idea. But like, would that just be like I did it? Like, that should you take the person who's the worst at making fire and then embarrass them, and then
oh,
it's like yes,
definitely.
another victory for me. I'm on such a hot streak. Like, don't give
Oh man.
somebody that momentum of coming in. Like Dominic
Yeah.
let Wendell go in, and then Wendell was able to add another thing to his resume.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't think I don't think Tony should do that per
Big
se.
move.
It would yeah, it would
Medium
be
move.
it
It's
would
a very
it would
medium
be a
move.
move. It'd
Yeah.
be a big move. I don't
It's
know.
like
I don't it,
defense. You're not giving somebody else the chance to make a big move.
Yeah, that's right. It's again, it just goes back to high, risk reward factor, right? What are you willing to lose and what are you willing to gain? Right? What is
Mhm.
there to gain? What is there to lose? And if that is an even like slate, right? If
Yeah.
there's the equivalent amount of loss as there is gain, don't do it. Like don't do it. But if you can gain way more than you
Yeah.
can lose, then sure, go for it.
Okay.
But if you're close to there, it's no need. No
Okay.
need.
All right. And then the last question I have for you, Stephen Johnson says, you won Survivor in less days than anyone else. People should appreciate that. Imagine what you could have done with a full 39 days, Chris.
That is true.
It's
Just
scary.
next time, don't trust War Dog.
Hmm. Yeah.
Don't trust the War Dog player. No, it's. I mean, your second time out there is always better than your first time. I mean,
Eh,
it is like you for the
not.
most part. All right, there's unless you're the first one voted out, I guess
I know some
then
people that they say the first time is better.
yeah, it's got to be a season that you're on the same playing field. I think it's hard to have a mixed season of like, it would have been very tough. It was tough. It was really really tough on Kelly
Hmm.
and Joe and David and Aubrey against
Yeah.
a all new player cast. Like it was hard. I empathize with them. Like I they played really really well, but
Yeah.
they could be they had a little bit maybe a right to be a little bitter that it
David
was
Wright.
set up that way.
Yeah.
A little David Wright to be bitter. But they 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 if they were on an all returning season, I think the level of gameplay is a little higher, and your spidey senses, right? You own into some of those things that you're not used to catching people on lies or questioning what people are saying the first time around. That's why blindsides are,
They
I don't know.
happen. They happen.
They happen.
Um,
Yeah.
Chris, are you interested in another return to Fiji or wherever they'll do another Survivor?
Yeah, I'm interested. It's hard to, when you're in the right place mindset and you're in the right time, part of your career,
Yeah.
and you have the space to do that and the ability to do that. It's hard to say no if
Yeah.
there's nothing holding you back, but at the same time, you've got to be right. You've
You
got to
should go
be
back. You should go back. Yeah,
sharp.
that you should be definitely. If they call you again, you should definitely. First off, what do you have to lose? That it's not like, hey, I don't want to like screw up my reputation of like
Yeah.
you have only it's
I'm
only
already the
upside.
worst. I'm already the worst winner. I'm already the worst winner on the.
Depends who you ask. Yeah.
So
And
it can't get much worse. It's got to go up from there.
and then I think people a little bit might be like sleeping on you, and you could sneak up on some people.
I probably could. Yeah, yeah. Whenever you've got that,
It's like, oh,
that
he only went 9 days. We don't have
yeah.
to
No,
worry about
I'd have
him.
to. I'd
Yeah,
have to watch I mean, Joe and I had a lot of conversations about this too. Like, it's always easy to target a physical threat because
yeah.
it's a physical threat and it's just a name that's thrown out. People are like, yeah, we don't want him to win any challenges. So
But you're the
you
opposite of
always.
Joe. Joe will probably never win. You've already won.
That's true. That is true. Who knows? We'll see. And answer your question. Yeah, if I get a call and they want me to go out, fly out to Fiji,
Hmm.
it's worth the experience. But I really would need to go in with the right intentions, right? And be in the right
Hmm.
headspace
Yeah,
and say, this is for fun, right? This is all
you're doing it for
extra. Yeah,
Monica.
for Monica. I'm doing it for Monica. Really
Hmm.
for Monica this time.
Yeah. What if you were on a tribe with Monica Culpepper?
I would love it.
Yes,
I
you would
would
do
love
it
it.
for Monica. Well,
I would
and
love
to
that.
bring this full circle, you came in to Survivor Edge of Extinction. You talked about doing it for Monica. You were listening to Tyson's winning game in Survivor TEOS Chapter 27. Could Tyson be the new Chris Underwood?
He would be doing it for Chris Underwood.
Yeah,
Oh,
well, he'd be doing
that'd
well.
make my day.
He'd be trying to follow in your footsteps here, coming in at the final six, with an idol now. He could be the person to do it.
He could be. That would be real full circle. That would be Survivor gods just playing little games with the little us
Hmm.
little peasants, little
Yeah,
Survivor peasants there.
they do that. Have you followed the wand off at all this year, Chris?
I have not followed the wand
Okay.
off this year.
Well, maybe I don't know. Maybe you should jump in at the final six here, and then throw your hat in, come into the win the final wand off.
I I'll be thinking about
Think
it.
about it.
I'll be
Think
thinking
about
about
it.
it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Chris, do you have anything you want to tell people to check out if you want to or do you not want to give out any social media to the haters?
Oh,
Hey,
they all have
and
it.
again, the haters, I don't think listen to the podcast. I really think that there's a different crowd that's like going to listen to like an interesting hour-long interview, and the people that are sort of like the like fly by night, drive by people on social
Yeah.
media.
Yeah, no, 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 no qualms on my end. Like I have a great, I got good things going for me in the real world right now. So it's totally fine. Yeah, I am still in Cameo. Anybody wants
Oh,
to get a
how
good
yeah, how's
some
the cameo
inspiration, some
business
motivation.
going?
It's fun. Like I find a lot of joy making someone's day. Like, just legitimately, it's not
Yeah.
it's
No,
not
I
a big
used to
deal to
make
me.
fun
But
of it. I used to make fun of it, but then like I started doing them, and then people say they really like them.
yeah, like this is one that I got in today, and it's like, this is why I'm doing it. But because I should probably just do it for like $5 and just
Mhm.
really just double down on not even caring, just making people's days. But this one was from Kyle. My son is your number one fan. If you notice in the photo from his birthday party last year, which I don't know how to see that, but if you
Mhm.
notice the photo from his birthday last year, he has your red buff and logo. He's turning 12. Can you give him a B-Day shout out? You inspired him
Yeah.
to not give up and play with integrity. I'm like, that is awesome, right? Like that's the survivor community that I love.
Yeah.
So definitely, yeah, got that as an option. Also, would love, man, anyone out there, looking to spend their internet days trying to find good deals. My incredibly talented wife still running her art business
Oh,
from Kate Warner Creations on Instagram. And shameless plug here, if you type in Hope 19, she's got her own little 15% discount she's doing right now with leggings and buffs and the whatever sports bras. Girls,
she
check it
makes
out. If you
buffs?
she makes buffs. Yes, she's
Whoa.
got her leggings,
Yeah.
her artwork on the buffs.
Yeah, that's
So
cool.
face protection. When you go into Whole Foods and
Sure,
they
I
make
get
you
it.
wear a
That
mask, that counts. I've forgotten, like I don't have a mask in my car, but I go into Whole Foods. It's like you got to wear a mask to just pull my buff out of my hair, just stick it over
Mhm.
my face. Like it
Smart.
works. Yeah.
Smart.
So go check that out. Give her some love. She's got some really cool stuff. She's really creative and does commission pieces as well. So
Yeah.
those are
Okay.
the things.
All right. Well, Chris, this was so nice to catch up. I hope that we could do this again sometime. Because I feel like
Yeah.
you have
Anytime.
I feel like you have a lot of interesting thoughts about the game.
Yes. Yes. I've experienced the whole different part of it. So
Yeah.
it's
You have a
cool
different
to.
experience than anybody else.
Yeah, I have a
Maybe,
very
but maybe
different
not. Maybe not
experience.
anymore.
I don't now. I mean, it's me and the other, 20 other people, or
Well,
set 13, whatever we said that number was, 12 or 13 or 11,
yeah.
whoever was on the edge.
Well, we'll see. You might be the only Edge of Extinction winner, or maybe
Yep,
not.
yep. Go down in history there.
Do you think you'll be
But
best friends with the person if another person wins from the Edge of Extinction? Do you think that you'll be bonded for life?
we'll have like a spirit, connect, like a Jeff totem that just like
Just
we
talk
we visit
every
each
day.
other in our dreams. It's like
Yeah.
yeah, we never realize we can't connect the dots, but we're always on a beach and there's this sail and it's
Yeah.
me and the winner of season 40.
Yeah.
And then we come to Hearts of Reality and we're like, I've had these reoccurring dreams, and they're like, no way, I've had the same dreams. It's like, oh my gosh, Jeff Probst, you devil.
It'd be amazing. Okay. All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much and all the best. Okay.
All right, take care, Rob.
Okay.